Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-did-did-da-da. Story time is where the worlds collide. Topics exploding like a wild ride. Every tale gripping, exciting by design. No one tells a story better. This is story time.
Do we need a break or anything and just go into it?
I think we can just go right into it.
Let's go right into
Alright.
it.
So, this week's story time is a little bit similar to last episode's story time.
Okay.
But it's not the same place, not the same story. This week, I kind of wanted to talk about something that happened in February of 1959 in the Soviet Union, actually. So this is outside the United States.
Ooh.
We're going international. This is widely known as the Dyatlov Pass incident. Essentially, in February of 1959, 9 very experienced Soviet hikers led by someone named Igor Dyatlov trekked into the northern Ural Mountains. You could probably assume that they just kind of never came back, considering how my stories go.
Yeah.
But essentially, what followed was obviously people went looking for them because these were all people that were academics, so they were professors and students, so well known, not just like
I
nobodies.
might have heard this story before.
Maybe.
It sounds
Hey, well,
eerily
don't spoil
familiar.
it for everyone else. Who
I won't,
might
I
have not
won't.
heard it
I'm
but
just-
myself, Dave.
I'll let him
My
go.
God, let the man finish the story here.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding.
Weeks later, after they kind of started their hike, which was very long, it was a couple hundred kilometers total, and the purpose, or I guess like their goal, was to reach the top of Mount Ortorton, was what it was called, which is like a commonly known like very difficult hike. Basically, there's a lot of like avalanches in the area. Obviously the elements are horrible there. It's freezing, constant snow, and it's very icy.
Gotta watch out for the
There
Yetis.
yeah, of course. There are actually local tribes in that area called the Mansi, and they're kind of like Russian Eskimo people, if you will. But they live in these harsh conditions, and they're not really a part of the other people in the society. They kind of just live to their mountains and know their traditions. And they actually call this mountain Kholat Syakhl, which translates to the Dead Mountain, because they're like, don't go there, you'll die. So let's kind of get into the setup here. So I mentioned earlier that these are experienced hikers. That was true. They're all skilled people. They've been hiking before. Each of them have already survived harsh expeditions in the past, and none of them were in decline health-wise or anything like that. They were all young people. I think they were all in their 20s, actually. So on February 1st, they set up their first tent, which was on an exposed ridge of the mountain. They were facing incredible wind force, negative 30 degrees Celsius temperatures, and just obviously a ton of snow. But this was stuff they were pretty familiar with. They've been hiking this way before. Before they got to this area on the mountain, they had actually talked to the Mansi people, as well as some like local Russian settlements in the area, to be like, what do we look out for? What do we do? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everyone said, like, don't go. They're like, you're going to die if you go that way. But most of them kind of didn't talk about it as, like, the weather's going to kill you. It was a lot of, like,
That was
there's
gonna be my
weird stuff
question.
that happens there, yeah. There's avalanches, of course, so that's always something they got to look out for. But specifically, a lot of people mentioned seeing, like, Yetis, UFOs, stuff like that in that area. And they're like, bad stuff happens when you get close to those mountains. But they were like, screw that. They were all like, like I said, professors and students, so they didn't really believe a lot of this stuff. Plus, they thought it would be like really interesting to be a group that got to the peak of this mountain, successfully. So they pressed on.
Question real quick.
Essentially,
Were there like a lot of cases where people just died?
there wasn't a ton of like reported cases, but this was mostly because it was like Soviet era Russia and a part of the world where there's like nobody. So nothing got reported. There's
Got
a
it.
lot of stories of like, we knew these people that went up and died. We, like, my dad or my uncle or whatever went up, experienced this, died, whatever.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it was enough to be like, you know, people, a lot of people were saying like, it's dangerous, you know, be aware.
Don't go.
We have no like actual record of them beyond them leaving these areas and going off to the mountain, besides us finding their eventual camp and the bodies, right? So basically, they set off. They went up to, they got like, I think halfway up the mountain, set up a tent on kind of an exposed area. And that was the last kind of night that they were alive. Weeks after, you know, people reported them missing and everything like that, the bodies were found. But they were found in like really, really weird situations, basically.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing didn't make any sense. So when the rescue teams got there, they found their tent basically, and the tent had a huge like slash in it. So it wasn't opened with the zipper. Like normally, it was like cut open, but they noted that it was cut open from the inside. So it wasn't cut open from the outside.
Someone was trying to get out.
Well, that was the thing. They were like, why would they be trying to get out? You know, like
Yeah.
what was happening, right? On the inside, they found one body. This person was not wearing any clothing whatsoever. And it seemed like all of their clothing was like neatly packed basically in the corner of the tent. They were like, this is odd, but like sometimes at the late stages of hypothermia, you start to think you're like warm. And so people can like take clothing off. So like, could be that, right? When they looked at her body, there was like no signs of hyperthermia at all. Like they were like, she looks healthy, except for like scorch marks on her back. She had scars and like almost like burn wounds going across her back. And they were like, this is also very weird because that doesn't really make sense. Why would she be getting burned, you know? They found a couple of other bodies, 4 total. So the second body they found was just outside of the tent, and it was face down in the snow. This body was also stripped of pretty much all their clothing except for their underwear, and their hands were totally shredded, but not in a way of like somebody cut them up or something. They were right below a tree, and their hands were like torn apart from scratching at the tree, basically. You could see blood on the tree, and there were scratch marks, and their like fingers were ripped up. So for some reason, this dude was clawing at the tree. They were thinking he was like desperately trying to climb up the tree or something. And they actually looked up, and in the top, like up in the tree about 10 feet, there were like snapped branches. So he potentially did get up and then fell.
Yeah.
But again, they were like, why? Like, why was he doing this? You know, why was he almost naked outside in the snow, like brutally trying to climb a tree to the point where his hands were shredded? You know, like,
Yeah.
what was he trying to get away from, basically? You know? After that, there were a couple of other bodies, 3 more bodies actually, that were found like pretty far away from the tent, actually. All 3 of these not naked this time. But these guys were like 500 feet away from the tent and kind of were in a position of like looking like they were coming back to the tent, basically. They froze to death, but they like froze crawling basically towards the tent.
Mm-hmm.
And in all of this, the injuries were probably like another just totally weird thing of it, right? So like there's weird circumstances to this. Potentially they went crazy or something, right? And whatever happened, they just like didn't make it out of the cold, and whatever other elements were going on, right? But when they brought the bodies back and did like the autopsies and stuff like this, it like kind of made no sense. Let me break this down because I have a list of some of the injuries. First person is Ludmila, who had her ribs totally crushed inward. The doctors said that they've seen stuff like this before from car crash victims. Like her chest was pushed in and all her ribs were shattered. The next dude, Simeon, he also had severe chest fractures, with apparently force that they said would take like greater than like a human being, basically. Like somebody wouldn't be able to do that to him, basically. Nikolai had essentially his like skull like shattered open. Like the top of his head was just boom. Again, they're like, this would take massive amounts of force. And then the last one is Dubinia, who her tongue was missing, her eyes were missing, and parts of her lips were missing. With no signs of like animal activity around her. So no like scratch marks or like claw wounds or bites or anything like that. And she wasn't like rotting. So none of these parts like rotted away. So for some reason, like these parts were removed basically from her.
Yeah.
Again, no idea why. Pretty much all of the bodies though, like for the most part, outside of the last one, most of these are like internal wounds, right? Like their ribs are crushed, their chest is crushed, a lot of like bones broken. And it was described that the bodies for those people didn't look injured from the outside. Like they didn't realize how bad their internal injuries were until they opened them up and they were like, holy crap, these guys are like a mess in here, you know?
Yeah.
Another thing, a couple of the bodies were found to have, like I said, burn marks on them. And when they looked at them, they were like, these aren't burn marks that you'd get using like fire. These are like radiation burns. And they had scorch marks on their chests and on their backs. Like to the point where some of their skin was deteriorating, and they were like, yeah, this is similar to what you'd see from radiation burns. One of the doctors, when he looked at them, said it looks like they were hit with like a blast, like a wave of pressure, like a bomb almost. But like some of them don't have like any external, like if they were hit by a bomb or something like that, you know, they'd be gone. But a lot of them just look like they were burned and like thrown against trees or like smashed by something, right? And that's that. There's really not much like in terms of explanation besides the fact that there was a journal from one of the hikers that was kept up until like the last night. And in the journal there was a bunch of mentions of just like very random stuff. They said they saw lights in the skies moving around at night. They said that at one point they thought they saw what would have been like a yeti, some kind of large hairy thing, they said. But for the most part, nothing that would be like, you know, lead on that they're panicking or something's wrong or like anyone's in danger. It was just observations. And then it ended. Just fell off
What
in
happened?
a tree.
Oh.
But yeah, that was that. For a long time after this happened, the files for it were kept in secret by the Russian government and actually weren't like released until the Soviet Union collapsed. And there's a bunch of theories around it. People think that maybe they were testing bombs or something in the area without letting people know. But again, if you're gonna, like, if there's a bomb, a lot more people would see it. Plus, you'd have different injuries than this. Plus, like, the whole avalanche thing doesn't add up because they weren't found in an avalanche or anything like that. None of them were covered in snow, anything like that. So it's just weird, you know. Nobody really knows how they died or what happened that night. And that's the story of the Dyatlov Pass.
I feel like I've heard that
day,
before.
To this day, you're not allowed to go there. The whole area is off limits now.
Jeez.
Wow. That was a good one, man.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. It's short and sweet.
Spooky. I don't know if I'm going to be able to
There's
sleep
not much
right
to
tonight.
Don't go hiking.
Oh, you did your job.
My first thought when you said, like, the specific injury of, like, it looked like a car crash from the inside in their basically their torsos, but, like, it didn't look like that from the outside. The first thing that came to my mind, which I don't think this is the right answer, but, like, maybe they, like, froze and then, like, I don't know, fell and then the bones cracked inside. I don't know. So it didn't look
Maybe
that bad on the outside. Like, I don't know how.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's the thing. It's weird, you know, because I feel like a lot of the explanations for what it could have been don't work because there's like always one piece that's a little off. And to me, it's
Yeah.
the biggest thing is that like for the people that did have those huge internal injuries, the like exterior looked fine, which is crazy. Because generally speaking, if you're gonna have something happen that causes that kind of injury, like you're gonna see it on the outside too.
Yeah. I feel like you've definitely mentioned this story before, like to me in person at least, because I've heard this
Maybe.
before. Not in as much
Maybe.
detail as you did now, but like
Yeah.
the whole idea.
That was a good story.
Yeah, it was good.
Sweet.
Story time is where the worlds collide. Topics exploding like a wild ride. Every tale gripping, exciting by design. No one tells a story better. This is story time.